Hi everybody, this is chapters 18 to 23 of Divergent by Veronica Roth. The book is getting so exciting now, absolutely loving it. It's just fantastic. So I'll have to be very quick because some of the chapters were quite detailed in this one. Some weren't, but some were. So chapter 18, the second stage begins, and that's of the tests to get through to the to become dauntless. So Triss is nervous when she sees that it's the same setup as the aptitude tests, because she thinks that straight away they're going to know that she's divergent and then something terrible will happen to her. But 4 seems to be quite nice. He's starting to be a bit more, they seem to be toying with each other in this chapter. That it's more, I think that the relationship's kind of, it's not really teacher-pupil when they're alone anymore. There's something, a bit more chemistry starting to work its way through. So 4 does the test, which is a relief because Eric's just evil and hate Eric. So 4 does the test, and and he says he'll watch as it happens, and he won't be able to let her come out until she's like calmed down, which I think is just insane. Absolutely insane. I would just be useless. I'd be in there for days, absolutely days, because I just know I would panic and I would just not calm down. So before she goes under, 4 tells her to be brave, and I just think that's really nice. It shows like a tender side to him, and I think it's a bit more, I don't think he says that to every student, and I think again it shows that there's a bit of a relationship maybe forming there, which is lovely because I really like 4. And then when she goes under, she's actually attacked by crows, and oh my gosh, it was just so horrendous. To her it felt completely real, and I just don't know how she coped with it. I would have been useless, but she manages to calm herself down amazingly. And when she comes round eventually, and 4 is stroking her hair and everything, and I just think, oh, it's so nice, it's so nice. And again, he wasn't really teacher, he was more concerned on a personal level, as a friend, and I like that. I think there's going to be something's going to develop in that way, but it was just amazing. So he insists that he takes her back to her dorm because she's so shaken. She doesn't want to because she wants to be tough and she doesn't want people to know that he's taken her back. But I got the feeling that the others were just, because they'd gone through the same experience, they were just completely the same. They were so self-involved at that point that even if he did take her, no one would notice. So he does insist, and he takes her back to her dorm. They have a little mini argument. She says she wants to go home and things like that she's a failure, and he says basically there's no sympathy there. He basically says, well, if you don't think you're going to succeed, if you think you're a failure, then you don't belong here, because that's not what dauntless are. And I thought that was really, that's true. If she was thinking that she's going to fail and she's scared, then she definitely shouldn't be there. But he tells her also that she's not a failure, and he asks her how long she was in the simulation for. She said she thinks half an hour, and it was actually only 3 minutes, which apparently was 3 times as fast as all of the other initiates. So obviously she's got a talent there, and it was just, it was really good. She tells her that his first hallucination was a who and not a what, which I find quite interesting, that someone who is so tough and so brave and who can handle all these weapons and guns and beat people up at will and just seems to be so in control that he's actually afraid of someone or something. It's just amazing, because it shows a bit of a vulnerable side to him in a way, because he's actually afraid there is a person out there who he is afraid of, and I really like that element of him. He also explains that the fear simulations rarely are what they appear to be. So it may be that it appears that she's afraid of crows, but in reality it's actually symbolising something else. And he also says that Dauntless was never once this setup where basically they have to almost kill each other to get in. It used to be a completely different sort of situation, more camaraderie and daring, but a more friendly kind of dauntlessness, if that makes sense. But when the new leaders came in, they decided that it needed to be more competitive and more brutal, and that's why Eric, the evil psychopath, is their new prodigy, which is just insane because he is just nuts. Don't like him at all. So in chapter 19, the news reports against Triss's old fraction, Abnegation. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. And they start to circulate, and they mention Triss and her brother and how they left when they had the choice, and that because their father was quite important, that obviously that means that they are disillusioned and there's something wrong with that fraction, which is, you can see why they would think that, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of stirmongering there and a bit they're making trouble, and I think there's something deeper down than just making a good news article. Basically, one of the other initiates, Molly, has actually helped them stir the trouble. She spoke to the newspaper reporter, and she said that Triss has nightmares and asks her dad not to do stuff or something like that, or not to do it, and so Triss actually attacks her, but Will pulls her off. She has a little bit of an argument with him, but afterwards they make friends, and they all head down to the tattoo parlour because Christine wants to get a tattoo. On the way there, they see that Foy's drunk, and that he's laughing, which is quite a shock to Triss because she's never actually seen him in that way where he's happy. And she actually remembers that he's 18. Now, all the way through, I'm having this really big problem so far. I don't know if you see the same thing, but I see him as so much older. I see him as like in his 30s, something like that, or at least is sort of like mid-20s. But he's 18, and I just can't get my head around that because he seems, the control he has and everything makes him seem so much older. Do other people get that? Because I'm just watching thinking, oh my gosh, he can't be 18, but he is. He's 2 years older than Triss, which is just insane. I just can't seem to make the connection. All I can think is this final test that they do will change Triss in some way, but at the moment 18 I just can't seem to get my head round. So basically he calls her over, he is drunk, and he shouts to her across the room, and he looks excited, or I read him as being excited that she is there, and he actually has a nice talk to her, and it's a friendly talk. It's not teacher-student or anything like that, it's just friends talking, and it's nice. I really like that, and I think again it shows that there's going to be more of a relationship building there. And he says that Triss looks good, which obviously in the teacher-student realm would not usually be acceptable. So, but she loves that, and I think she's as interested in him as he is in her. Because I do think at this point, I think he is interested in her, but obviously he has he can't take that extra step. Al asks what they talked about. He tries to save her and carries her off on his shoulders and things like that. And when he puts her down, he asks her what they talk about. And Triss just sort of blows her off, says, oh, it's just, he was just saying that he was drunk and things like that. Whereas Will, he was nearby and he heard what actually transpired between them. So he tries to say it, but gets a swift elbow in his side because Triss doesn't want that to be common knowledge. And Triss realises for the first time that she is happy. She realises that when she's had nights out at home, well, not nights out, but she's been at home, it's been quiet, she's done bits and pieces, but here she's laughed with her friends and she's had fun and she's eaten lots of food, of any food, and she's just had a great time. And I think she realises that, I think she says something about it being peaceful, where her selflessness is peaceful, but happiness is where she is, or something like that. I think I've completely butchered that quote. But she says something right at the very end of the chapter, and it was lovely, it was really nice, and it made you think that she was content. In chapter 20, Triss enters the second simulation of the second stage, and basically she's in a glass box which is slowly filling with water, and all her friends and four watching, and they don't seem to care and things like that. During this, Triss, once it's over her head, actually manages to break the glass and free herself from it, but through this reaction, as soon as she wakes up, she knows there's something wrong because Four isn't reacting as he usually does. And he walks her off in the end, and then because he asks her how did she do it, and she says she didn't know. And and when he walks her off, he says that he knows that she's Divergent, and basically she denies it, which is obviously that's what she's going to do because she can't tell anyone. And she says she doesn't know what it is, but he says she shouldn't have been able to sort of manipulate the simulation, and that is what's given her away. So, as in the way she was taking the aptitude test, and that was frozen, and they deleted it. By Tori did that. She is now getting her second test on the second stage deleted by 4, because he says if someone finds out, she will die, that they will kill her. So Triss, in a panic, she goes to the one person who she feels she can talk to about this. Not that she feels she can talk to, because she's tried before and hasn't got any information, but it's the only person who knows. So she goes back to Tori at the tattoo parlour, and she basically explains that Divergent means that she's fully aware of her, whereas the other factions, they cut off certain parts of their sort of mental ability. All they do in abnegation is they are selfless and they do that and nothing else matters. In Dauntless, they're brave and nothing else matters, whereas she is fully aware of all of her character traits, so is able to make a fully balanced decision and things like that. And I took it as that meant that was very dangerous in their society. So she does that, and basically, as the conversation progresses, we find out that Tori saved her because her brother was also Divergent, and she was told, as 4 has told her, that she has to stop giving herself away in the simulations, because her brother was too good in the simulations, and everyone was really interested. They were all talking about him, and in the end they completely all of the leaders were even going to see him because he was so good at these simulations. And he said it was more like a game to him because he knew it was real, and he didn't forget that it was a simulation. Whereas the other members, they all think it is genuinely real, but he didn't. He knew it was a game, and he knew he'd be fine and things like that. So he was really good at these games, at the simulations. So basically, the last day before the final, the big test, he was visited while he was doing a simulation by one of the main leaders, and that very night he ended up dead at the bottom of the chasm. Now Tori says it was labelled a suicide, but she knew in herself that it wasn't a suicide because he was happy and he had a girlfriend and he was doing really well. So she knew in herself that really wasn't the case. And to be honest, I have to agree her, even though Triss thinks that they wouldn't be capable of murder, I have to say that in this case, with the way that they're training them, I think anyone in Dauntless especially is capable of absolutely anything. Let's see. Chapter 21. More articles are being published and none of them are good. Triss goes to the net she landed on when she first came to Dauntless, just to be alone, to collect her thoughts, because everywhere around her there's negative sort of press and people are talking negatively about her and things like that. And she debates why she actually was the first to jump onto the net and risk falling off the ledge to her death, and she decided that she wasn't actually jumping off the roof so she could pretend and copy Dauntless. She thought that she was finally actually being something that she was born to be, that she was actually Dauntless to start with, but because of the faction she was born into, that she had to actually conform to their standard of living. Her next simulation involves being ordered to shoot a family, which I would find absolutely horrific. And afterwards, she admits that she misses them. And to my surprise, and to hers, 4 says he doesn't miss his own family. He says that even in their world, that's odd. Where they have fraction before blood, and I think there's definitely a history there. I think there's a reason he was a transfer, and I think it's something to do with his family, and why it was so easy for him to just move and leave. So back when she gets to the dorm, Eric is there. Oh joy, don't we love him? And basically he has so far the rangings and the ratings for the actual simulations of stage 2, and amazingly Triss is at the top, which we kind of guessed because Triss was 3 times as fast in the first simulation. But Peter, who, if we remember, he stabbed, can't remember his name, but he stabbed someone in the eye when they won him last time. And basically he is really angry, gets Triss up against a wall and says that he won't be outranked by his stiff. And she argues with Will and Christina after Will has pulled him off, and they ask if she's pretending to be weak in order to psych them out. And I think it hurts her in a way because she thought she had genuine friends, but at the same time I think it's such a high pressure situation they're all in that I don't think any of them I don't think they really mean that she's psyching them out. I think they're just also nervous about losing because they've got a lot riding on it. Al is left upset because he was last, but I kind of think Al is going to be last. He shot himself in the foot in the beginning because he's a nice guy, I suppose, at the end of the day. So what can you do? Alone, Triss wants to be alone again, so she finds an empty hallway and sits down. And she meets, I think it's Uray, and he's one of the Dauntless-born initiates, and he just seems really nice and friendly, and he's going to shoot an apple off Marlene's head. No, not an apple, a muffin. And I think this shows the comparison between the Dauntless-born and the actual transfers, because they do go for fun and they thrive on these dangerous pursuits, whereas we don't seem to see that as much in the transfers at this point when they're during their downtime. I think the most daring they get is a bit of a tattoo parlour visit, and that's it. Uray succeeds, but he's interrupted by Shauna, Zeke and Four, and Zeke jokes that they'll tell Four will tell Eric because they're not supposed to be in there, but Eric does. But Four says he won't, which I trusted that. I believe that he won't. And as they leave the room, Four tells Triss she belongs in Dauntless. I think he means because she's getting along with the Dauntless-borns so well, and she's so calm with them, and she just has friends with them, and she just genuinely does get on really well with them, more so than she does with the transfers. And she dares to hold his hand for a few seconds, which is for a stiff, I suppose, is quite a big leap and a bit of affection being shown there. After lights out in the dormitory, Triss is still awake and she gets up for a drink and she overhears Eric talking to someone we don't know who, talking about trying to weed out the Divergents. Something really fishy going on. I think there's more to it than just they don't like these people. Obviously there's a big concern there on if they're about, so they're trying to weed them out early. But whilst listening, she's grabbed from behind by, at first she realises just Peter, and then it becomes clear that it's Al and Drew. And they take her to the chasm and attempt to throw her in. So nice of them, especially Al. Oh my gosh, I was just like, Al, what are you doing? Are you an idiot? But Peter's obviously manipulated him, and Al obviously is having a complete idiot day and decided, I know, I'll just turn into a complete raving lunatic. So at the last moment, Four comes in and he saves Triss, which I was just like, oh thank God. And I knew Four would have to come in, and I was reading it, I was thinking, Four, where are you? You've got to save, because Eric would have just said, oh bye, you know, you're the weakest, off you go. But thankfully Four heard. So Peter and Al, showing their true colours, run away like babies. So Peter is not as tough as he pretends, get away, but Drew doesn't, and Four beats him up. And never have I been so happy to read about someone being beat up, because they were just awful. And I think Four probably hurt him more than he needed to, because it was Triss, personally. But if it was anyone else, I think he'd probably done the same thing. 22. Four takes her back to his room and she wakes to him washing blood off his hands. Four admits Drew is in the hospital, and that he says that he's not sure what condition he's going to be in afterwards, but do we really care? No. And tells Trish she needs to pretend she is weak in order to survive, which I completely agree with, because that would mean her true friends would want to protect her, and I think in Trish's case she's not got the strength yet to be able to defend herself if she's being attacked from all angles, so she does need the help of her friends. Chapter 23. Trish spends the night with Four, and he takes the floor while she takes the bed. And I love it in the next morning when Trish says Peter would have thrown a party if she stopped breathing, when Four was looking at her bruises, and Four replies that he'd only go if there was cake. I just love that because it shows he has a sense of humour and he's not all this. I mean, we know he's not a tough guy all the time, but I just love the fact that he can even joke about it. And in the dining room, Trish actually does as he's advised, and she pretends that she's weak and she's scared and she's afraid of Peter when she explains what happened. And let's see, and when they see Drew at first, they all think that she was the one that beat him up, which obviously wasn't the case, but she doesn't say that Four saved her, she just said someone she didn't know. The act works and her friends say they will protect her. So they all go to the room where the final stage will eventually go, and I think this might partly be because Trish isn't going to be able to go through a simulation herself because of the state she's in. Drew definitely can't, and I think so far, I think in his own way is trying to help in that way. That may not, I don't know if you took that way, but I took it that way because he said it was something different to do for the day. So they all go to the room where the final stage is going to be, for the fear landscape where they face all of their fears, and Four explains that it will tap into each individual's worst fears. So one person could have one and another person could have 21, and it just depends on the individual person. Peter complains about this and says it's completely unfair if there's such a difference between how many fears you have to overcome, because you're still measured on the time whether you have 2 fears or 52. But he really shouldn't have complained. If I was Peter and Four had been there and seen what I'd done the night before, I would not be talking about that. I would be trying to hide in the back corner and just not be noticed. But no, he complains, and Four, don't you just love him? He humiliates him by saying that he is a coward after his treatment of Trish last night, although he doesn't actually name her, just says after last night, and that everyone now knows that he's afraid of a short skinny girl from abnegation, and I just loved that part. Oh, I had to read that twice, I thought that was fantastic, because I like that. In his own way he does defend Trish. And back in the dorms, Al tries to say he's sorry, but Trish refuses, and won't even let him at all. She's just like, don't talk to me. And she asks him never to go near her again, and I have to say I completely agree. He was absolutely... Yes, he tried to defend her by saying don't touch her, but what's the point in saying don't touch her when you're about to kill her? You know, the better thing would have been to say don't kill her, don't throw her over there, but no. Or the better thing would be to just not get involved in the first place and just say to Peter you're an idiot and punch him. But, men. Anyway, so, I love Four, absolutely love him. Do you get the same thing where you think he's like much older than his 18 years? And what else do I love? I just love the whole story, to be honest. It's absolutely amazing. I can't get enough of it and just want to read it forever. So please let me know what you're thinking so far. Oh, it's just a fantastic, amazing book. I will be recommending this to everybody I know, and maybe even just some random people I don't know. Because it's just fantastic. So, hope you're enjoying it, and please comment below, and I think Amanda will be on in 2 days' time. So, yep, hope you had a good time reading it so far. Bye!